Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reish of Crime Talk, and thanks for watching. As always, we have a very full docket, so let's get to it. First, Chad Daybell's attorney filing more useless paperwork, and I'm sure the media will get it wrong. Second, a sadistic man in California poisoning people to film them to see their reactions. Third, Rayshard Brooks case update. Is this a case that's awful but lawful? Fourth, TV star charged with sexual assault from almost 20 years ago. Kim Kardashian wants to join the true crime genre. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the week. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reish of Crime Talk, and thanks for tuning in. As always, if you haven't already done so, we'd ask that you hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put out new content. And as always, leave us a comment below. Now, let's keep it respectful. Sometimes we can agree to disagree, but that's okay. First on the docket, Chad Daybell. That's right, he is awaiting his preliminary hearing on July 1st and 2nd. And apparently in Idaho, you have to file a lot of unnecessary paperwork. As you may recall, when Chad Daybell had his initial advisement, he was advised to his statutory right to a preliminary hearing within 14 days. Well, that was back on the 10th. Now, some 8 days later, Chad Daybell's attorney files a paper stating that he has waived his right to a statutory hearing within 14 days and signed it and filed it as of yesterday afternoon. What unnecessary paperwork do they have to do in Idaho? Now, normally these are forms that the court has at the courthouse. They just have you sign it. Or better yet, the reason why all criminal court matters usually require everybody to be in person, except in this new world of WebEx, is simply for the fact that you have to be there, and the judge can engage in a colloquy between the defendant and the court to make sure that they understand the rights that they have and the rights they give up. For example, as you may recall, at that status or the advisement hearing, the court specifically inquired of Chad Daybell that he would waive his right to a hearing within 14 days. Hence the reason, even if it's set out just a day or two after that, it's set on July 1st and 2nd. I get that, but just seems so unnecessary. I hate creating paperwork for the sake of paperwork. So you had the judge tell him on video, he said he understood it. Then the attorney had to fill out a piece of paperwork, take it out to the jail, have him sign it, and then file it with the court. Completely unnecessary. The minute orders would have sufficed. Now on to another story at the Daybell residence. So obviously, the people in the community where these remains of JJ and Tylee were found were devastated. This is a very small community, and all of the neighbors around Chad Daybell's property are stating that they are shocked. They remember seeing his wife out jogging and were surprised by her sudden passing, as we all know about by now. Anytime a child dies in the community, it is a loss, a devastating thing for that community, no matter how long or how short of a time that they have ever been there. And let's face it, most people hear about this stuff. They try not to think about it, but it doesn't really hit home until it's someone they know or someone very close to them. And I know a lot of people spend a lot of time on these types of stories, sensational. One could even accuse us of doing that, but we're trying to do this to explain what takes place in the legal system, which we'll get to again in just a second. But I think it takes a moment to realize that this is truly a tragedy, and these children didn't deserve what took place, and they certainly weren't treated with the respect and dignity that they deserved. Now, one of my pet peeves, and one of the reasons why we started Crime Talk, was because of the mere fact that The news media usually seems to get it wrong. They don't understand criminal procedure. They don't understand anything that takes place. Now, the other day, all the stories, the headlines were, Chad Daybell pleads not guilty. No, he didn't. But that's what it said. Because the attorney, filing more frivolous paperwork, sent in a filing that was kind of a standard piece of paperwork that was usually be done in usually misdemeanor cases. This is a felony case. His plea of not guilty would not even be accepted until after the preliminary hearing. But yet the media reads it, not understanding what exactly they read, and they say he pled not guilty, but he didn't, and they don't even know when it actually starts. From the time that the information is served upon him at the end of the preliminary hearing, at that point, the 6-month statutory period to get Mr. Chad Daybell will be the time that they have to get him to trial. Not a moment sooner, not later. That's the date, at the end of the preliminary hearing. I know it's maybe a little too much in the weeds, but it matters. We have to use the correct meaning and language in these proceedings so that people don't get off on tangents, and that's how people get off on crazy stories that make no sense. We have to keep it real and straightforward. Let's take a quick recess from the docket before we get to our next story. And I think that when we hear the next story, you will understand why I am telling you to buy this subscription, all right? Everyone should have access to a detailed background check program, all right? Background checks, huge. If you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, type in the name, sign up for the subscription, you can get unlimited searches, all right? No risk trial. You can search anonymously, literally millions and millions of records in millions of databases all around the United States, and you get all that information compiled into one easy report in a matter of minutes. There is no way that you could do a thorough background check on your own unless you checked all of these databases that are searched for you in a matter of seconds. That's right. You can have criminal records, bankruptcy records, court records, property valuations. You can search your own self to see if, in fact, if there's anything nefarious going on with your name and you didn't know about it. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com. You'll be completely satisfied. Now, back to the docket. And this is why we talked about the background search before. Because let's face it, my guess is when you hear this next story, you're going to say, man, I bet you somebody has wished they had checked this guy out before because they've probably figured something was not right. Well, there's a gentleman in custody in California, and he is currently sitting in a jail in Huntington Beach there in Orange County. Nice little place. My daughter went to college out there, so I'm familiar with it. But William Robert Cable, he's 38. And so I'm not sure if this guy's sadistic or he thinks he was going to put this stuff up on social media or something, or whether he's just using it for his own sadistic pleasures. I don't know. But apparently what he was doing, allegedly, was going around providing some sort of spicy ricin from chili peppers so that he could feed them to homeless people and videotape their reactions. Well, as you can probably imagine, since he's in custody on that $500,000 bond, that things didn't go that well. And apparently it wasn't quite funny enough because victims in this particular case experienced seizure-like symptoms, difficulty breathing, and suffered vomiting and intense mouth and stomach pain. Some of the victims actually had to be hospitalized. So Mr. Cable is now facing 8 felony counts of poisoning, 1 count of inflicting injury on an elderly person, so obviously someone is over a particular age, which makes him an at-risk adult, 8 misdemeanor counts of contributing to delinquency of a minor, so apparently he was preying on homeless children, basically under the age of 18, and an infraction of consuming alcohol or smoking marijuana while driving, probably the least of his concerns at this point. If Mr. Cable is ultimately sentenced, he could face up to 19 years in prison, and he is currently awaiting further court proceedings as he waits in custody, unable to post his $500,000 bond. Ladies and gentlemen, we all make mistakes. Most people that I come in contact with in my practice that I've experienced over the last 25 years are good people that usually make mistakes. Nobody wants to be judged at their worst moment, and nobody wants to have their life defined by one particular moment. However, Mr. Cable, assuming he's ultimately found guilty, and we'll give him that presumption of innocence, but if he does, his life will be defined by going around trying to poison 8 people so he can film it on video. I don't know if this guy's sadistic, just dumb, or what, but he is going to have to go to prison. Bottom line. Next on the docket, an update on the Rayshard Brooks shooting. Now, yesterday we brought you the news that the officers involved in the Rayshard Brooks shooting have been charged. Officer Garrett Rolfe was the officer charged with felony murder and a sundry of other charges that could send him to prison for the rest of his natural life. Devin Bronson was an officer but did not fire his weapon. He's been placed on administrative leave and charged with aggravated assault as well as several other counts, including violation of his oath as a police officer. He apparently has sat down and spoken with the district attorney and states that he will, in fact, cooperate in this process. Now, statements made by Mr. Bronson through his attorney have now indicated that he has stated that, yes, he has talked to the district attorneys and their investigators, but that he has not decided whether he would actually testify against his fellow officer. Now, what's really been making me think about this particular case, and obviously anytime somebody loses their life, it is a tragedy. I took a little heat from people in the comment section based upon my comments that 6 months ago or even 25, 26 days ago before the George Floyd matter, these officers probably would have been put on administrative leave, cleared within no time, and they'd be back on the streets rather quickly. And the thing that has changed was the George Floyd case. And in that video, you have now former officer Derek Chauvin putting his knee into the neck of George Floyd. Completely unnecessary, completely uncalled for. And you heard police organizations and police officers from around the country saying everything that Officer Chauvin did in that video was completely wrong and it was murder. This particular case, however, gives me a little pause. And understand, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I have had cases where police officers have abused my clients, but we try to look at this as objectively and rational as we can and the facts that we have here. Here we have the video from the body cams. We have the video from the Wendy's. In this particular case, Mr. Brooks was polite, and the district attorney who's handling this case, the elected Fulton County DA Paul Howard, when he announced and had this press conference, kept saying that Mr. Brooks was polite and cooperative throughout the 41 minutes. Well, he was. I totally agree. Until he then pulled away and ran and then engaged in a scuffle with the police officers, and then while running, turned around and fired a taser at the police officer. It was dark. The officer heard a sound go off that one could reasonably conclude was possibly that of a weapon, given the heat of the moment. Now, I wish that the officer had not shot Mr. Brooks. I wish Mr. Brooks hadn't run, but those are the facts. That's reality. But it was disturbing to me when I found out that the charges were filed by the district attorney, Paul Howard, before the Georgia Bureau of Investigation had concluded their investigation and final report. In this particular case, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation could come back and find that the police officer was justified. And like I said, nobody likes people being shot and killed, but we have to look at this factually. This is not a case of Ahmaud Arbery. This is not a case of George Floyd. These facts are different. And in this particular case, and I'm not condoning the fact that apparently the officers either kicked or put their feet on Mr. Brooks in this particular case. I'm not saying that's right at all. But it looks like, and I'm going to steal a term that I heard the other day, that this is an awful situation but it was probably lawful. That's right. Awful, but lawful. We'll see. We'll keep an open mind. We will apply the facts to the law as it comes out, and we will see where this progresses. Let me know. Do you think the Fulton County District Attorney, who's up for re-election for his 7th term as a district attorney, maybe got ahead of his skis on this particular case to maybe satisfy the community to make sure that this takes place? Now they have officers literally walking off of their shifts, basically refusing to be police officers. I think most people would want law and order. They just want good, responsible, constitutionally protected law and order to take place. I'll be the first one to tell you to get rid of the bad cops. I've dealt with many of them over the years. Like I said, as a criminal defense attorney, I've also met some of the good ones. And if something happened to my family members, there's a couple of them that I would want out there leading the investigation. So each case is different. You can't say every case the police officers were wrong or every case the defendant in a particular case or the person who's victim of a shooting is always right. Each case is different, and you have to be able to look at it with some intellectual honesty and say these circumstances are different. This is not a situation where you're always against the police. If you say the police never do any good, tell me where you sit before you tell me where you stand, because if that's the position, no one's ever going to change your mind, and probably, thank goodness, you'll never serve on a jury because you're not willing to look at the evidence and apply the facts to the evidence and the law that the court gives you. Next on the docket, not sure exactly what it is with all these Hollywood stars and moguls, but Danny Masterson, who starred in That 70s Show, has been arrested for multiple counts of sexual assault. And what's a little surprising is, and apparently there's always been rumors about allegations against Mr. Masterson over the years, but nothing has ever stuck. Now, Mr. Masterson is given the presumption of innocence, and in this particular case, the allegations go back 17 and 19 years ago. There were 2 other cases the district attorney thought that they were going to file upon. However, they did not go forward, one, because they don't believe they had enough evidence in the one case, and the second one, the statute of limitations had run. However, as we have talked about before, when we were talking about Harvey Weinstein, there was the cases that went to trial, and then they brought in what they referred to as 404B evidence of other crimes, wrongs, or misdoings to basically show a pattern, to establish identity, modus operandi. We saw that in the Harvey Weinstein matter. More than likely, those cases that weren't sufficient to go forward because the district attorney had to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt can still present that evidence at a trial if one goes forward, because the standard of proof to have that admissible is simply a preponderance of the evidence. More likely than not, then the jury can decide whether it was relevant to prove the specific thing that the court would allow it in for. Now, Mr. Masterson, hopefully he has lots of resources. He can get himself a good attorney, and he should definitely take these charges rather seriously because he could face prison time up to the remainder of his natural life. We'll follow that story as well. Next on the docket, Kim Kardashian wants to join the true crime genre. Now, I'm sure everyone has heard of Kim Kardashian West. She may have had this show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Maybe she gets people pardoned from federal prison so that they can get out early. Well, and by the way, she's also studying to sit for the bar exam. She's doing an apprentice program in the state of California, which is rather unique. You don't need a college degree. You don't need to go to law school. But if you can pass the test and you've been tutored or mentored by an attorney, you can become an attorney. That's what Miss Kim Kardashian West would like to do. She certainly has plenty of money to get as much tutoring as she needs, and I have even offered on a previous show many months ago when she said she was going to law school, hey, call me. You got any questions? I'll be more than happy to help you out. Well, she has been signed by Spotify to do a true crime podcast related to her work with the Innocence Projects. The podcast will be co-hosted and co-produced by Lori Rothschild and Saldi, who is an Emmy-nominated executive TV producer known for true crime and historical documentaries. So apparently Miss Kardashian's podcast will be distributed by Parcast, which is the true crime focused studio Spotify picked up last year for a measly $100 million. And Spotify has lots of money because, as you may know, Joe Rogan is going there for, once again, another $100 million. So Spotify, if you're listening, I'm here for you. Kim Kardashian West, I'm here for you. Call me. We'll help you pass that bar exam. And, oh, by the way, last week we were number 46 on the true crime podcast genre in the United States. Only 45 more spaces to go till we get to number 1. And it can only be done without you. Thank you. So I turned off the lights here in the Crime Talk studios to be able to show you what everyone needs. That's right, a flashlight. Look how bright that thing is. It lights up the whole place. You can see anything you want. Look at that. Small, compact, perfect for a Father's Day gift. You need to get one. Why? Father's Day is going to be here. Nobody wants to be that person that doesn't get dad something on Father's Day, particularly something that's cool. So if you're out walking the dog, it's late, take the TC 1200 tactical flashlight. If your car breaks down, you open up the glove box and you have yourself a tactical flashlight. If there's a power outage or you're out camping and you need help, guess what? You click the little button and it's got this pulsing beam so that people know where you are. I'm telling you, everybody needs a flashlight. You might as well have a good one. And for dad, you might as well give him a totally cool one. So go to crimetalksearch.com/1tac and order yourself a tactical flashlight. You will be completely satisfied. Now that the lights are back on in the Crime Talk studio, let's talk about our dumb criminal contestant of the day. And once again, and I'm not sure why, for some reason, there seems to be a disproportionate amount of dumb criminal contestants that come from Florida. I'm not sure if there's something in the water or what, or maybe it's just everybody just wants a Crime Talk mug. However, you don't have to become a dumb criminal. Go to the link below, Teespring, order yourself one along with a bunch of other cool Crime Talk gear. Let's get to the dumb criminal contestant. Brian Adamek, 41, was charged with exposure of his sexual organs and battery on a law enforcement officer. Not good things to do. Well, apparently, Mr. Adamek was walking down the streets of Melbourne completely naked when he violently attacked 2 people, including a police officer. When the police ultimately arrived and he was arrested, Mr. Adamek was, like I said, naked, but he had cuts all over his body and possibly a head injury. As Mr. Adamek went to the police station and ultimately found himself in a nice cement cell with a metal bench, he was able to tell the police that maybe he had taken a little LSD earlier in the day. He didn't have much else to recall because he had no recollection of what had taken place. Ladies and gentlemen, we always try to use our dumb criminal contestant of the day as a teachable moment. And here's another teachable moment. Yes, do we believe that people are going to do illegal narcotics? Yes, we do. Are we so naive to think that we can turn off all the drugs and not bring them here and people will not use them? No, they will find something else to stimulate them. But LSD, ladies and gentlemen, it's been known to cause people to have psychedelic trips. People jump off buildings. People think they can fly. People get naked. They assault people. let's not do that. Maybe they should just try a fine Cuban cigar. I've been smoking them for years. I've never run down the street naked, and I have never attacked anyone while in a state of undress. So remember, no drugs, stick to fine Cuban cigars. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just a little fired up. It's just been one of those days. Thanks for watching. Thanks for taking the time. We know you have lots of options of things to watch and do out there. Hopefully you've learned something today. That's our goal. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Crime Talk.